Hi, welcome to the SJ Child Show. Today, my guest is Spender Bishins. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Did.
I like to read phonetically, so that comes out bad sometimes for people's last names. No, that's great. And you just told me you're in Mexico City. That's what's your weather like today? Is it a nice day there?
Uh, pretty average for this time of year. It's about 70 and sunny, but we also get some nasty rainstorms as well. So,
oh, definitely. I've been a couple times, a couple different places, and I mean, obvious for vacation, not for living, but love Mexico. It's so nice to have you here today. It's a really great topic that we're going to discuss for viewers and listeners. And that is Social Security, disabilities. We're going to touch on hopefully as much as we can in the time that we have. And if we have to have Spender back for another conversation, we certainly will. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and how this got started for you.
Sure. So I graduated from law school and passed the bar in Florida in 2008. And 2008 was not the best time to be entering the job market in the United States, specifically late 2008. And so it took me a couple years of doing short-term and contract work before I was finally able to land like an actual career. And that was in 2010, and that was with the Social Security Administration. So when people ask how I got started in Social Security, the answer is by complete accident. That just happens to be, I was, applying with all kinds of different federal agencies. We were living in Washington, D.C. at the time, and that's the one that stuck. So I ended up with Social Security, and I ended up staying 11 years.
Wow.
And during those 11 years, I wrote almost 2,000 disability decisions for administrative law judges. And I also reviewed a few thousand more decisions on appeal. So I have read my fair share of medical records. I have heard my share of hearings, and I've had a lot of discussions with a lot of different types of judges, lots of different personalities and backgrounds about all kinds of different cases. So I have a pretty good understanding of how judges make their decisions and why their decisions turn out the way they do.
Wow. That's really interesting information that we just don't have available on an everyday basis in everyone's mind now, do we? That takes a special experience like you have to have gone through that many things and gained all of that information and knowledge. So wonderful that you can bring that here to us today and share those things with us.
Right.
So what type of situations did you find most common? Is that even a question?
Yeah, it is. Adult cases are far more common than child cases because lots of adults do dangerous work. And dangerous doesn't always mean they're going to get hurt immediately. That does happen, like in a warehouse setting, but also just things that cause slow, long-term damage over time, like construction work, any work involving heavy lifting. Delivery drivers have to actually, people who stock grocery stores and gas stations, they're lifting a lot constantly. And over 15, 20 years, the body just wears out. And so because adults do that more than kids, obviously, lots of adult cases and lots of back injuries, knee injuries, those are the most common cases. Mental health related cases like anxiety, depression, PTSD, those are also fairly common. Less common would be things like HIV, cancer. I certainly have seen lots of different kinds of cases, but the ones where people sustain injuries because of the work that they're doing, musculoskeletal cases, those tend to be more common.
Yeah. And is it harder for adults to prove, I guess, their mental health injuries? I guess it might be a little bit tougher than a physical injury.
Well, yeah. So in the book, in part 4 of the book, I lay out the different types of impairments. And I categorize them into four different types. I start with visible physical impairments because that's what most people think of when they think disability, right? Something I can see. You need a wheelchair, you need a cane, you're limping. I can tell, I can look at you and get a pretty good idea of why you're saying you're disabled. But actually, there's a lot of non-visible physical impairments as well, like fibromyalgia, connective tissue disorders, cancer, HIV, emphysema, things where you might not necessarily know just by looking at someone that they're unable to work 40 hours a week.
Mm.
Then, of course, we have mental health impairments, which are also non-visible, like anxiety, depression, PTSD, schizophrenia, things that are mental health, but that potentially could be treated. And then I separate that from the fourth category, which I call permanent mental health conditions. That's things like autism spectrum disorder, neurocognitive disorder, and intellectual disability, things which are likely more permanent in nature.
Down syndromes, things like that, lifelong. Yeah.
Yeah, because Social Security they treat those things differently because, for example, they're not going to be so focused on are you getting treatment so that you can go back to work if it's a condition where there's currently no way to treat the condition in a way that would allow the person to have such a change in their circumstances that they could work if they weren't already able to do so.
Yeah, definitely. And that is for adults. So then how many child cases do you see and how does that work for parents and things, caregivers?
They're definitely more rare. I would say just off the top of my head, probably 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 cases was a child case. There's actually two different kinds of child cases, which is going to sound odd, right? Like children, they're under the age of 18. What else could there be? And so that's one type of child case, children meaning under the age of 18. So in part one of the book, I talk about the difference between the SSDI program, Social Security Disability Insurance, and SSI, Supplemental Security Income. Most people, when they think of disability, they think about SSDI. I work, I earn credits, I pay the Social Security tax, and that's the SSDI program. It's disability insurance, and it's an insurance program. But for children, kids don't work. That's what we're taught in our training. Kids don't work. See, kids can't earn credits. And so there is no SSDI for children. So for child cases, only SSI is available. But the problem with supplemental security income for most families is there are asset and income restrictions. And so if the parents have too much, and too much is not a lot, it's just too much according to the law, a couple $1,000 in assets or income that puts you over the poverty line, you probably aren't going to qualify for SSI, even though that's all that's available for children. So it can be really tough for parents who have a disabled child because you first have to meet those asset and income restrictions, and then the child has to also be found medically disabled. The other kind of child case is more rare, and it's also more confusing because it's called disabled, and I cover this in the book. I fully flesh out what this is in the book. It's called disabled adult child. And what it is it's a special kind of case for people who are aged 18 to 22, but whose disability manifested started before age 22. And this is an SSDI case. So it's an insurance case. But because a lot of people who had a disability, maybe it's something they were born with or developed as a child, maybe that person wasn't able to work and earn their own credits. Well, there's actually part of the law that lets them file a claim on someone else's earnings record. Usually it's a parent or guardian.
Sure.
So if that parent or guardian had earned the insurance, then the 18 to 22-year-olds can file a claim. You have to be 18 because this is an SSDI claim, and that program is only available to adults, which means you have to be found disabled under the adult standard, but you're someone else's child, the child of the worker who you're filing under. That's why it's called a disabled adult child. You're technically an adult, but had that impairment since you were a child.
Yeah.
And that could be really useful because first of all, there's no asset income limitations when you're talking SSDI, but also second, SSDI comes with Medicare coverage, not Medicaid, which has asset income limitations, Medicare. So you don't have to be 65 to get Medicare. If you're found disabled on the SSDI program, you can also get access to Medicare benefits, which is obviously a huge help to people who may not have insurance, or that person, that 18-year-old doesn't have insurance and needs services and has a hard time getting it.
I love that. Wow, that's really great information. I didn't know that existed, and I'm sure plenty of our parents with older children that are listening will definitely want to find out more about that. And so I'm certainly
that's right, because if you have a teenager, if they're 15, 16, that's something to think about when this person turns 18. Even if they're on SSI as a child, once they turn 18, Social Security will re-review that case automatically because they're now legally an adult. And then they'll now review that case under the adult standard, meaning can they work? Can they do full-time work? Even though they're 18 and maybe they've never worked, that's what Social Security is going to do. And they may cut off the SSI. And so it's important to understand, well, if we're going to maybe need to reapply, hey, there's this other program that might also be available to us. And Medicare comes along with that other program. Okay. There's other requirements, and those are all in the book.
Yeah. So if your child is on SSI, turns 18, but still can they still qualify then to receive SSI as well?
You have to re-qualify.
Okay.
The child standard is about your functioning as compared to other non-impaired children. Once you reach your 18th birthday, you're no longer a child under the law. You're now an adult. And now the question is, can you do full-time work that exists in significant numbers in the national economy? And Social Security will automatically send you paperwork saying, hey, we're doing an age 18 review on this case, because we now have to ask a completely different question. And you, as the claimant, have to prove a completely different set of circumstances that the child cannot work.
Wow.
And so I wrote some denials where the child was on SSI, possibly for their entire life up to that point. And then the judge at the 18th birthday was denying that claim because we've decided, okay, now under the adult standard, they can work. So now they're cut off because essentially it becomes a brand new claim.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that they just have to really be prepared to do that and to get the right documentation in place and doctor's appointments. And that is something that the Social Security office usually sets up. They'll have their own agents, if you will, to go and get these types of clinical visits done and things like that for qualifications.
I'm really glad you brought that up because Social Security will make people think we're here to help you. And Social Security will lead you to believe we're here to help you get what you need. And if you don't have a lot of records, we'll even send you to see a doctor to help you out. And what I explain in the book and what I want to stress to your audience now was none of that is actually to help you. It is actually the complete opposite. It is to prevent you from accessing benefits. And Social Security is not going to tell you that, but that is what they're doing. So yes, Social Security will say, oh, we'll help you get evidence. Well, they will. They might send a letter to a medical source, but that's no guarantee that they'll get the evidence. And that doctor that they're going to send you to see, that doctor is being paid by Social Security.
Exactly.
With the understanding that they know Social Security wants medical opinions saying people can work. We're talking about adults now, of course.
Yes.
So relying on the Social Security Administration to help you get your claim together is a terrible idea because you have to remember they're also the ones helping you deciding your claim.
Yeah.
A lot of people watch crime TV shows, right? So we're more familiar with the criminal legal process. It would be like asking the prosecutor to help you set up your defense. Well, their job is to prosecute you, right? So not going to get a very good defense, are you?
Yeah.
So if you're asking Social Security, who at the initial level has a strong incentive to find you not disabled,
Mm.
and I'll talk about that in about 30 seconds. Why would you have someone who wants to find you not disabled help you set up your disability claim?
Right.
So the point of my book, Social Security Disability Revealed, is you have to understand the process and you have to know what's going on, because you really are your own advocate. And you can also hire a representative to help you, but you and the representative are in charge of putting together your case, not Social Security. They're not on your side. And the reason they're not, or one of the reasons they're not on your side. So child cases are SSI cases, and some adults can also file for SSI. And SSI has asset and income limitations. And often people with asset and income restrictions also file for Medicaid, right? Well, Medicaid is paid for by the federal government and the states. The states contribute to Medicaid funding, right? So the more people the Social Security finds eligible for SSI, potentially the more people on the Medicaid program. You see the conflict of interest here, right?
Yes.
If the state wants to keep people off of Medicaid, one way to do that is to find them not disabled and make sure they aren't found disabled. And the state is who makes the decision at the initial level. When you first file your application, a bureaucrat in your state government is going to decide if you're disabled or not. And that's the same if it's an adult case or a child case.
Wow.
And so because they have this conflict of interest, you definitely don't want to rely on the state bureaucrats to help you put together your disability case, knowing they really are going to do everything they can to deny it. And over 70% of cases are denied at the initial level by the state agencies. And this is one reason why.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really important that people know the process, know the difference between the SSDI, SSI programs, know the difference between child cases and adult cases, because even though your 17-year-old may not seem like an adult, when they hit their next birthday, legally they are.
Yeah.
And you have to know how the system works and how the deck is stacked against you. I'm telling you the deck is stacked against you. But you have to know how it is and why it is to fully understand why it's so important to know all of this on your own, so that you don't get trapped in these things, and you can make sure to know what you need to do to give yourself the best possible chance at having your claim approved.
That's great. And show me the book again. Let's talk about, show the book and get the Social Security Disability Revealed by Spender Bishins. So exciting to have you on here to share this with us today. Where can we find the book? Is it on Amazon, bookshelves?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, paperback and ebook. We're also in Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org. You can ask your local library to get it, and they can get it in paperback or ebook.
Wonderful.
Apple, Scribd, other ebook places. All of that's at our website, bishinspublishing.com, BISHINS publishing.com.
Perfect.
And I've also got on the website links to our social media, but we've also got a full description with all the topics in the book and the table of contents. So you can see all the things we're talking about and understand how the book is laid out and why it's laid out that way. And the whole point of the book, again, is right here in the subtitle. It's why it's so hard to access benefits. I start with that because I don't want to sugarcoat things. You're not going to get the full truth from Social Security. Like we just talked about, they're going to offer to help you put together your medical records. Well, they can send a letter to a doctor or hospital and try and get something, but you could also do that.
Yeah.
Right? You
more effectively, probably.
Or representative. Yeah, because a lot of times you have to follow up. They'll try and fax it to you, right? Or they'll say, come in and we'll print them out at 50 cents a page. And there's just all these barriers to getting treatment, of course, particularly for people with low access to resources, lower means. People who qualify for SSI oftentimes don't have the money to go get treatment. And maybe they don't have health insurance. If you're an adult and you've lost your job, which means you've lost your health insurance, how are you supposed to go get treatment to prove that you can't work?
Yeah.
right? And Social Security knows this. They understand this. They know that most people don't have great medical records, and they use that to their advantage in order to deny people the disability
Hmm.
benefit that they've earned and that they deserve. And so
Yeah.
I didn't want to sugarcoat this, right? I hope I'm not. I'm telling you
Yeah.
exactly where the problems are. I think it's important for people to know. I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm not trying to discourage people from applying. I'm trying to help people understand that this system is not set up for you to succeed. This system is set up to make it really easy for you to pay money into the
Help
system.
if they have to,
If you're an employee, that money comes right out of your paycheck, right? You never even
right?
see it. It goes straight to Social Security. But to make it really difficult for you to get money back out, it's like any insurance program. There's this promise that don't worry, we're here if you need us. But then when you need them, it's really hard to get the money back out. So you have to
Hmm.
understand that. And you have to treat this like any other insurance company and any other insurance claim and understand they're not on your side. It's going to be difficult. It's not like other insurance companies that in that there's no profit motive, of course, because it is the government, but they need to have those benefits there for people when they get to retirement age. And that's why they're so restrictive when it comes to the disability claims, because
Okay.
if they find too many people disabled who haven't paid into the system for 40 years, it could destabilize the Social Security system overall.
Sure.
And so, but think about that as a profit motive because that's how they're acting. And if they're acting like a for profit company by denying as many people as possible, then you, as the claimant, need to treat it that way and make sure you
Got
get
your
all
butt
the
covered.
get everything covered, get your ducks in a row, get your evidence, make sure there are no gaps in your evidence, make sure it's clear, make sure your test results are clear in there. And of course, I also recommend that everyone hire a representative because even though it's important that you get your own medical records gathered and you know what's in there and you are ready to face the government, it is ultimately a legal proceeding, right?
Hmm.
And you shouldn't, I'm a lawyer, and so I'm going to tell you, you should never do a legal proceeding on your own. And this isn't an ad for my services. I don't do these types of cases.
Yeah.
In the book, I recommend people find a Social Security disability representative who's a qualified representative and they know the system, and find someone in your local community who knows
Yeah.
the judges and the local rules in your specific hearing office that's going to have your case.
That's great advice. Really great advice. I appreciate that so much. And there is so much that you can gain when you get resources, when you're able to understand how to access resources. So hopefully that's what we have done for you today is giving you a little bit of an idea of how Social Security can help you, how it does not want to help you. So you need to help yourself by making sure that you have, like he said, all your ducks in a row, all of your what about like writing a letter to them explaining? Is that something that is you also say is maybe important instead of just showing up blindly with a medical record?
Yeah, the thing with writing a letter is it's considered a statement by the claimant.
Mm.
And you can do that at the initial level. Once you get to a hearing with a judge, you're going to testify at the hearing in person orally anyway. So a statement is good, explaining like, here's my records, here's the doctors I've seen, here are my impairments.
Yeah.
If you have
A
a representative,
factual record, not an opinionated record, right? Or
well,
letter, right?
if you have a representative, the representative can also write a legal brief explaining
Yeah.
here's the law, here's the evidence in the record. Because some of these medical records are 800, 1,000, 2,000 pages.
Yeah.
So it's important to show the judge, page 1156. That's the test you want to look for
Yeah.
because it is a lot to look at. And the judges and attorneys at Social Security, they don't have a lot of time to look at these cases.
Yeah.
They will look at everything, but it will be really quick.
Yeah.
But I just
Good
want to provide
points.
one word of encouragement here because there, you just said something important, which is Social Security, they don't want to help you. And that is partially true. A lot of the judges that I wrote decisions for, a lot of them were very low paying judges. So they would approve like maybe 20% of their cases. They were really where they could have judicial discretion. it would almost always come down against the claimant. In other words, claimant, you have to really prove to me all of the requirements of the disability law, or I'm not going to find in your favor. And the law is really strict and the requirements are pretty substantial. And so that's why some of those judges would deny 4 out of every 5 cases. But what I like to say is, you can't choose who your judge is. And so there are certain things you can't control, like which judge you're assigned. If you're assigned a judge that's only paying 1 out of every 5 cases, you can't do anything about that. So there's no reason to dwell on that. So that's one reason it may be hard to access benefits. But the second half of my subtitle is what you can do about it, right? And I want people to understand, even if you get that type of situation where you have a low paying judge, they're still paying 1 out of every 5 cases, right? And so that's what you want to do, is you want to be that 1 out of every 5 that has such good evidence, no gaps in your treatment, good, clearly written medical opinions from your doctors, a good presentation at your hearing, really clear testimony at your hearing. You want to be that person that explains the situation to the judge so clearly that that judge feels they have no discretion in your case. And they say, the evidence is very clear, this person's disabled. I will find this person disabled. I will move on and use my judicial discretion on the next 4 cases. And so, yeah, 20% sounds like a daunting number. And it sounds really like, how am I ever going to do that? It's 2 out of 10, but it's not a flip of the coin. There are things you can do to make sure your case is the best out of those 5, the best prepared and the best presented. And that's what I want people to understand. The information I'm presenting in the book and the tips in the book are to help you be that 1 out of 5. And I wrote a lot of denials for judges that were low payers. I also wrote a lot of approvals for judges that only approved 1 out of every 5 cases. And I would write those approvals so I would know what was in that medical record, and I could hear that hearing and hear how things were presented and understand this is someone who knows the law. They know their impairments. They know their medical record really well. If the judge says, when did you get that MRI? They could say, that was back in April of 2021, Your Honor. They know what's in there and they can answer the judge's questions, and they can help the judge find the evidence that the judge needs to support the claim. So whether you're a child case or an adult case, or a child case that's being redecided as an adult case, there's always something you can do to help that presentation be better and to help it be the best possible presentation to the judge to give yourself the best possible chance at success.
And, I'm sure that's something that people didn't know. They didn't, or don't even realize that the more due diligence and work that they put into it is the more of the outcome for themselves. The minimal amount of effort they give, well, that might be your minimal effort that's going to be coming back to you as well then.
That's right. That's right. It's not like the judge takes 10 cases and randomly decides to pay 2 of them. They're looking
the letter S and the letter J today.
Every case gets an individualized review, and both the judge and the staff attorney writing the decision, that was my job, look at the whole medical record. They will look at everything. And that's how they will see if there are gaps in the evidence or inconsistencies. Well, this doctor said you can stand 2 hours a day. This doctor said you can stand 6 hours a day. You better be able to explain that and explain why you should listen to this doctor. He's done more testing, or I saw him for 2 years. That doctor's more believable. This doctor over here saw me one time for 10 minutes. You have to have a way to explain these things so that the judge understands, here's why I should listen to one doctor, or why this report is more persuasive. And those are the cases, the cases that do that and that present the record, the medical records in that way. Those are going to be the 2 out of 10 that low paying judge approves. So it's not random. You have to know how to get through the system as the claimant, and how to find a good, qualified, knowledgeable professional representative to help you. And then you and your representative work together to present your case to give yourself the best possible chance at success.
That's fantastic. Wonderful, valuable information. And I'm going to have you hold up the book one more time so we can get it clearly in our mind. Social Security disability revealed, why it's so hard to access benefits, and why what you can do about it. No misreading.
And you can get all of the resources at our website, bishinspublishing.com. That's BISHINS publishing.com.
Fantastic. Spencer, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today and this is great information that isn't as widely available and accessible. So brilliant. And thank you so much for coming today and sharing with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.